Raw intellectual brilliance is a quality that's culturally associated with men, not women. As a result of these pervasive stereotypes, women are less well represented in academic disciplines that treat this sort of spark of genius as a requisite for success. To learn more about these findings, keep watching. Consider the question of what it takes to succeed at a particular task, say, to do well in a math class. Is success largely a matter of hard work and dedication, of really sticking at it no matter what? Or does success require an inherent mathematical aptitude, a special talent that just can't be taught? Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck and colleagues have found that people of all ages and abilities fare better when they place more emphasis on the importance of hard work and less on the importance of innate talent. This is so especially in the face of challenges. When faced with initial failure, people who emphasize dedication tend to think, well, I need to do better next time. They redouble their efforts. After all, failure indicates the need to try harder. But if one thinks of success as mainly a matter of inborn talent, then failure may lead one to simply give up. After all, failure may be an indication that one doesn't have what it takes, that one is not a math person, and so there's no point in even trying. In this way, students who think of math as a matter of inherent aptitude do less well than their effort-emphasizing peers. For these reasons, educators can benefit all their students by sending the message that hard work and dedication are of utmost importance, and by downplaying the emphasis on raw innate talent. However, in a 2015 paper published in Science magazine, my collaborators and I found evidence that women are especially impacted by these messages. In particular, we found that women earn significantly fewer PhDs in fields that send the message that raw brilliance is required for success. Such brilliance-required messages discourage women's participation by combining with pervasive cultural stereotypes. Consider, for example, how difficult it is to name even a single pop cultural portrayal of a woman with that same spark of genius displayed by Sherlock Holmes, Dr. House from the show House MD, or Will Hunting from the movie Good Will Hunting. When women are portrayed as intellectually accomplished, they tend, like Hermione Granger from Harry Potter or Dana Scully from The X-Files, to also be incredibly hardworking and diligent. Their accomplishments are not presented as grounded in innate talent so much as in long hours of work. The portrayal of Agent Scully contrasts in this way with the portrayal of her partner, Agent Mulder. While both are highly accomplished, Mulder displays a certain feral genius and is capable of case-solving flashes of insight that Scully just never quite matches. More generally, experimenters have found that when men and women are in fact matched in their IQs, people nonetheless estimate that the woman's IQ will be about 10 points lower than the man's. When male and female students perform equally well in math, educators attribute the male student's performance to inherent math talent, but the female student's performance to diligence. And for every 10 Google searches asking, is my daughter gifted, there are 25 Google searches asking, is my son gifted? This is even though girls are 11% more likely than boys to be in gifted programs. In light of the ambient stereotypes linking men but not women with raw intellectual aptitude, my collaborators and I predicted that women would earn fewer PhDs in disciplines that emphasize the need for this sort of inherent talent. Results from a large-scale nationwide study of 30 academic disciplines provided clear support for our hypothesis. When asked to consider what it takes to succeed, academics give very different answers depending on their chosen field. In some fields, success is viewed primarily as a matter of hard work and dedication, but in others, success is seen as requiring a special, unteachable spark of brilliance. Importantly, women earn significantly fewer PhDs in fields that have brilliance-required cultures. These data shown here are drawn from both male and female academics, but the same results hold if men's and women's answers are considered separately. The public discourse tends to focus on women's underrepresentation in STEM, that is, natural science, technology, engineering, and math. In fact, though, women's representation across individual disciplines is quite complex, with women being well represented in some STEM subjects, such as molecular biology and neuroscience, but underrepresented in some social science and humanities disciplines, such as economics and philosophy. Importantly, these brilliance-required messages actually predict women's representation across the entire academic spectrum, including across STEM disciplines and across social science and humanities disciplines. This comes as no surprise to me, as my discipline, philosophy, is a humanities discipline with very few women, but a very strong brilliance-required culture. Indeed, in the 1980s, people in my field would sometimes speak of the beam. The idea being that some lucky few were born with a beam of light coming from their foreheads, which they could shine on any subject matter they chose and thereby illuminate it with the sheer light of their intellectual beams. In our study, we also examined 3 alternative hypotheses that have been put forward previously to explain women's underrepresentation. These 3 hypotheses are very prominent in the literature, but in fact we found that none of them were able to account for gender gaps across the entire spectrum of academic disciplines, including across both STEM and non-STEM disciplines. The first of these hypotheses was that women might have been unwilling or unable to put in the long hours that some disciplines require, and so disciplines in which people work longer hours would have had fewer women. This was not, however, what our study found. The second was that women may really have been less likely than men to have extremely high levels of intellectual aptitude, and so disciplines that are more selective, that is, disciplines that admit a more intellectually elite group of individuals, would have had fewer women. However, our data did not support this possibility either. The third hypothesis was that men and women might have different interests and aptitudes, with men being more engaged in pursuits that require one to think abstractly and systematically, and women being more engaged in pursuits that require empathy and emotional understanding. If this was true, then disciplines that involve more abstract, systematic thought would have had more men, and disciplines that involve more empathy and human concern would have had more women. Again, though, these factors did not predict women's representation across academic disciplines. Further, brilliance-required messages were able to still strongly predict gender representation, even when statistically taking all of these 3 other factors into account. There are a variety of ways in which these brilliance-required messages may combine with cultural stereotypes to discourage women's participation. If women internalize the stereotypes that link brilliance with men, then they may doubt whether they have what it takes to succeed in a brilliance-required discipline. But even if a woman is completely confident in her own abilities, she may nonetheless be discouraged from participating in such a field. For example, she may worry that other people in the field will think of her as less able to succeed than her male peers. And of course, she may be right to worry. In our study, we asked academics to consider the following statement: even though it's politically incorrect to say it, men are often more suited than women to do high-level work in my discipline. We found that people in fields with strong brilliance-required cultures were more likely to agree with this statement, judging women to be less suited than men for high-level work. Disciplines with such cultures were also assessed as being less welcoming to women. Of course, women are not the only group in our society that is stereotyped as being less likely to be brilliant. African Americans are also stereotyped in this way, and indeed we found that African American representation is also predicted by these brilliance required messages. For future work, we're exploring this finding in greater detail, but this preliminary evidence suggests that brilliance cultures may not only reduce gender diversity, but also racial diversity. This strongly underscores the importance of changing these brilliance-required messages and cultures in fields that wish to increase their diversity. Educators who want to diversify their fields should stay away from words like brilliant, genius, or gifted. We should emphasize to our students the importance of working hard at the subject and share personal anecdotes of overcoming struggles, challenges, and failures. Remember that everyone benefits from emphasizing hard work over innate gifts, though these brilliance cultures are especially discouraging for women and minorities. Let's stand up and say how we all worked hard to get where we are and stop letting these brilliance messages shape young people's choices.